The modern church, the modern Christian religion, if you will, has made a mistake that I've been addressing over the last two messages, Wednesday and Sunday. And now again, the finality is tonight. Looking for Love is the title of this message, part 3. And they've made a mistake, and that is this. They have been very defined and close-minded when it comes to where people can find these little breadcrumbs of the Father's love for us. The Magi made that same mistake. They went to King Herod's palace in Jerusalem looking for him, but Jesus wasn't there. It seems that a palace would have been the most logical place for a king to be. But instead, he was found amongst the most lowly of people. He was with the shepherds, with the sheep that stunk, and all that goes with that. They were lying, he was found lying in an animal trough where he was born, not in a palace. The Magi made the mistake that I believe that the church is making today. We think we're going to find him in one place. We think that we're going to maybe only find him in the temple, in the palace of the church. But really, he's with the down and out. He's in the places you'd never expect him to be. The eternal, the great king, the one that was prophesied about, he didn't become a doctor. He didn't become a philosopher, although he was a philosopher. He didn't become an engineer. He wasn't an author in the traditional sense of the word. No, he chose a very common and ordinary job as a carpenter. And he schmoozed around, if you will, with humble, everyday working people. He hung out with the people that were being oppressed by a cruel Roman Empire. He could be found with fishermen. He could be found with tax collectors. He could be found with a half-naked woman who was brought to him because she'd been caught in adultery. He spent time in Samaria, which was a town that the Jews hated. They hated it. Not Jesus. You'd find him there. You'd find him with the people that he hated. You'd find him in the towns that the people hated. You'd find him amongst the groups of people that had been kicked out and cast aside. We, of course, discover God in a burning bush. We find him in some of the most unusual places and ways in the Bible. A God who refuses to be put in a box. A God who refuses to allow you to define him in certain terms. He was with the sick. He was with the downtrodden. He was with the demon-possessed. He was with the lepers. I'm saying this because I'm not just talking about the types of people that Jesus would hang around or the types of people that he supported and encouraged. I'm talking about a God who cannot be defined or put in a box the way we have tried as the church. It makes us comfortable when we can define it. It makes it comfortable when we can put it in a song. It makes it comfortable for us when a scripture or two can kind of, enlighten everything we need to know. It makes us so comfortable to say, yeah, this is God and this isn't God. The last two messages I first started last Wednesday talking about fear and about how fear and love cannot coexist, and that anywhere there's fear, love is not present. But in the opposite of that is perfect love casts out all fear. And how people cannot feel fear and feel God at the same time. People cannot feel fear and experience love at the same time. That you and I have a responsibility that when we interact with somebody, when we have a conversation with somebody, that they leave feeling loved, even if it's a conversation that feels like a conflict. I actually want to propose these three things to you today as we jump into the meat of what I want to say. I want to propose to you that we can find God in the coincidences, we can find God in the conflicts, and we can find God in the common. We can find him in the coincidences in life. I believe that what we sometimes call a coincidence, God calls evidence. And faith in and of itself sometimes is as simple as second-guessing what we normally call coincidence. How many things have happened in our life that we've chalked up to coincidence that if we just applied a little bit of faith, we'd realize this is too good to be true. There has to be the work and the handiwork of God. We see him as supernatural. We see him as, the great miracle worker. We see him as the God who turned water into wine. We see him as the God who does these really big, thunderous, or earth-shaking, world-changing things. But I actually believe the majority of what he does for us and on our behalf, so that we will feel valued, so that we will feel loved, so that we will not feel alone, so that we will feel seen and heard and cherished. I believe that the majority of those things that he does, we will find in the common places, in the ordinary parts of life. But Danny's supernatural, but he's also natural too. David Wagner always says that if it's not practical, it's probably not spiritual. Yes, he is supernatural. Yes, he is spiritual. Yes, he is grand, but he also is simple. He also has that still, quiet voice. He also comes as a peaceful, loving God in the simple and the ordinary things. What you might call coincidence, God calls evidence. You can find him in the common things. And the third thing that I want to say, and I'm going to read you a couple stories here. 1 John 4:8 says, anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love. And we always think about love in these very beautiful, the heart-shaped box of Valentine's Day and the ushy-gushy card and the sweet love song ballad, or the cruise, the picture of Leonardo DiCaprio on the front of the boat with his sweet beloved in Titanic. We see these wind blowing in your face, the sun shining. We picture that as love. But you know that you can also find God's love in conflict too. I actually think that the enemy sometimes will come and he will disguise peaceful situations to make you comfortable. But sometimes God wants you to find love and affirmation in the uncomfortable places and the uncomfortable things. Sometimes your moment, if you will, that you've been waiting for, that your soul is longing for, is waiting for you to take a step outside of your box and into a place where there's so much more for you to behold. The greatest breakthroughs in my life have happened when I've been willing to let go of something over here in order to grasp something over here. Oh yeah, we try to stretch out our arms. We try to reach both of them at the same time, the security of what we know, in order to grab a hold of something that we're not quite sure about. But oftentimes in the kingdom and in life, in our journey of life, you're going to find that they're just far enough away from each other that your wingspan, if you will, can't quite reach one and the other at the same time. What is God asking you to let go of? A pet theology, a person, a mindset, a grudge, insecurities, your own shame? What is it in your heart that God's asking you to let go of, that even though it might be detrimental and negative, the enemy's convinced you that it's known and comfortable? And so you know what to expect feeling this. You know what to expect being with this person. You know what to expect living in this way. What is he asking you to let go of so you can open your eyes up and embrace, as I've been saying over the last two services, these breadcrumbs of the Father's love, these common, ordinary, unsuspecting places that we find love. On Sunday, we were talking about this young lady who wrote a very heartfelt letter to her youth pastor. And then I finished it up with the second part of her letter. As she said, basically, I was talking about how I felt loved by my parents and loved by my dog and cat who jumped up when I had a terrible experience in church. And I thought, maybe this is God's love. And she wrote back and she said, I'm not sure if it's God's love. I don't even know if I believe in God at this point because of what I've been through in the church and the way I've been rejected and the lies that have been told to me and the things that I've been beat over the head with. But she said, but I know it's love, and it feels good to my soul. It feels good what I'm experiencing. My challenge today is twofold. Number one, I want to ask you to continue, as we did Sunday, to expand your heart and mind to the possibilities that there are things for you to encounter and experience that will make you feel loved, that will make you feel seen, valued, heard, that will make you feel that somebody cares, feel the kindness of God, or just the kindness, period. There are things out there that aren't going to be wrapped in your cute little King James leather cover. They're not going to be wrapped in a cute song on the Joy FM. They're not going to be wrapped in a Bible study. They're not going to be wrapped in some religious meme, or they may not even be wrapped in your devotional in the morning or that perfect quote from your favorite speaker. No, it might be found where you go to the grocery store and you're looking for that one item and they have one left. Or you're going through the grocery store and that person that you had on your mind that you've been wanting to connect with happens to walk past you. You recognize them through their mask. Or you go out to your car and for some reason when you walked in, you couldn't find a shady spot, but the sun had shifted in just a way. Well, now your car was in shade. It wasn't going to be quite as hot. Or when you get home to unload your groceries, that package got delivered 2 days earlier than you expected and you really needed it. How many common, ordinary things that we pass by as maybe just good luck is another coat of paint, if you will, from the Father upon our hearts of his love. I read this about a woman. She said, I encountered God for the first time in a large flowering currant bush. It was springtime and I was 8. I wasn't expecting to see him, capital H, in my garden. I recognized him, though, in the exquisite beauty of the abundant pink, red, tubular flowers and the fresh green of the new leaves of the bush. I saw the fullness of new life burgeoning forth from stems that had been stark and dreary just a few weeks before. God spoke to my heart in the cool of the April breeze at 8 years old of his love for me. It opened my 8-year-old eyes to see the world as a gift from God, to love and enjoy, and that God's love was for all. It remains my burning bush experience because I knew then I was on sacred ground. Yet I counseled myself, or maybe the enemy or religion counseled her into counseling herself, not to speak to anyone of this encounter, as the God of home and school was a God to whom I was to be obedient and frankly was rather joyless. My God of the flower and currant bush was both joyous and full of love. I don't actually believe, those of you that are watching and will watch this, I don't believe in a God that doesn't have joy. I don't believe in a God who doesn't have love. I don't believe in a moody God. I don't believe in a retributive God. I was asking for help for you two. You didn't even look up at me. I don't believe in a retributive God. I don't believe in a God who is looking to pay you back or looking for you to owe him something. I believe in a God who's full of vibrancy and color and creativity and joy and love for humanity. Don't bring me anything, and don't bring one another anything that doesn't look like the description that we find in 1 Corinthians 13. Patient and kind. It's not self-seeking. It's not proud. Keeps no record of wrongs. Boy, if we read 1 Corinthians 13 today and we go through that one by one, and then we apply that to what we're allowing ourselves to receive and hear about ourselves in the name of God. Maybe what we're sharing on Facebook or sending to a friend in the name of God. If it doesn't pass the 1 Corinthians 13 test, if it doesn't sound like a loving father speaking to a child, it's not God. If it leaves somebody in fear or in shame, or feeling like God is disappointed with them, or he's angry or he's distant, it's not his love. And it's not God. I read this on Sunday, Colossians 3:14. Above all of these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. I don't know if you've ever made a dish before that was supposed to have eggs and you went to form it together, but you forgot the eggs and it just breaks apart brittly because the egg is what binds. Or if you went to assemble something together. You forgot to glue it. Your toddler comes by to a piece of furniture and it falls apart, comes crumbling down. God's love is above all things. If you read Colossians 3, you're going to find it is a long list of things, both good and bad. He says, don't do this and don't do that and don't do this and don't do that. I mean, it's quite a story. Don't do this and make sure you don't do that and live holy and live pure and live undefiled and do this and do right and be kind and be this and be that and blah, 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 blah. Goes on and on and on and on. And then it sums it up in verse 14. It says, all these things are good things to remember. All these things are good things for you to know. But above all these, put on love. Because none of this stuff has any value. It all falls apart. For love is what binds it together. Our faith is like sand strewn about and the wind blowing it from left to right without love. Love is what binds it together. Love is what is the concrete that holds everything else, the expression of who God is through us together. I want to say it two ways. The first is this. It's how you love, how you represent God to one another, and how you receive it. I can see it in many of our eyes. Our love tank, if you will, is empty. And we can easily blame it and say, well, I'm living with this person, or I'm lonely, or I don't have friends, or this COVID thing has got me locked up. And that's why I feel so empty inside. And you have a good point. I'm in the same boat. I'm a people person. When I don't have my kids with me, I'm at home, and it's hard. It's hard. And people aren't looking to gather in groups, and there's nowhere to go out and be around people. And if you are, they want to stay a far distance from you. And the reality is that it's been hard for many of us. And I've been challenged in my own life to find love in the simple things. As I said on Sunday, to find love at a house that's clean and candles that are burning, on a record that I put on my record player, on a new show that I found that I enjoy. I've been watching a show called Somebody Feed Phil lately, highly recommended. This guy who travels and it's on Netflix, travels to different cities and experiences their food. And he's one of the creators or producers of Everybody Loves Raymond way back then, if you remember that show. Really goofy, zany guy. But I found love in that. I find love in that perfectly cooked meal where you can feel the intention of somebody's heart. I find love in the sun setting or the rainstorm moving in. I find love in that perfectly cold drink. I find love on my mower sometimes. I find love on my mower with my AirPods in, the sun shining, listening to my favorite album. I find love, and I've learned to find love in getting in my car and it's starting up, realizing how lucky I am compared to so many in the world that have a car that runs and air conditioning here in Florida. I travel the interstate all the time and look out the window and see people, it's 97 degrees out, they don't have air conditioning. I find God's love in that. Or just love, because as we know, He is love. Tonight I didn't want to speak long. It's Wednesday. You guys are getting your kids ready for school, many of you. Lots happening. I want this to be short and shareable. If you will let us know where you're watching from, if you'll tag somebody and let them know it's a short message, something they can watch, that would be awesome, because I believe this is really a great, great thought and a great principle for people to live with and to think about in the days to come. We love you guys. We bless you. Remember, you can find God. You can find love in the common, in the conflict, and in the coincidences. It just takes one extra step to realize it's Him. Feel loved and find love in all of the ways that God intended us to. God bless. We'll see you Sunday morning at 10 a.m. for our drive-in service that we are going to be ready for you. So we hope that you join us then. Come a little early, get a spot in your car, stay in your car, listen on an FM radio, and see everything go happening on stage, or join us in a lawn chair under the trees. We love you. We bless you. We'll see you soon.